Hello, my name's Paul and I'm a teacher at SET English. I'm an OET expert, and what I'd like to talk about is the hardest part of OET, which is the reading. Okay, I'm going to mention 5 of the biggest challenges that people have when it comes to OET reading. All right, so what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about a few different things. Let me go through them. 1, time management. 2, range of vocabulary. 3, multiple choice questions. Number 4, we're going to do recognizing paraphrasing. And number 5, we're going to talk about comprehension. Okay, so let's talk about the first one, time management. Now, time management is not really separate from other aspects of OET. Okay, to be good at managing your time, you need to have good other skills. And really, you can't separate it from language skills. Okay, so let's go and have a little look at what I mean. And we'll go through it a little bit in detail when it comes to that. Okay, so let me just get this ready now. Okay, so time management. Let's talk about the challenges that we've got. Well, we've got different sections of the exam, haven't we? We've got part A, and in part A, what we've got is we've got 15 minutes to do 20 questions. Okay, so time is absolutely a very difficult thing to manage here. Okay, and then we've got part B and part C. And in this section, we've got 45 minutes to do 6 questions in part B. Okay, and in part C, we've got 16. Okay, so you've got a slightly better amount of time to do things. So in part A, you've got 4 texts. Okay, 4 short texts, which are sort of thematically linked. So they might all be about burns, or they might all be about diabetes or something like that. Now, how do we manage our time properly? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to stop wasting time, okay? Okay, stop wasting time. Don't look at the incorrect text, all right? Have a strategy. It's really, really important to have a strategy. So what would that strategy be? Okay, step 1 would be a kind of text preparation. Okay, at SET English, we've got a 2-step solution. Okay, we've got a 2-step solution. Number 1 is text preparation, and number 2 is getting the answers. Now, lots of people, they just dive straight in and they go looking at the texts and start trying to find the answers. Well, we don't recommend that. We've got a very detailed text preparation step. And also we've got some really good focus on keywords, categories of information in step 2. So stop wasting time. If you can save 5 seconds on one question, okay, well, imagine that you could do that across 20 questions. That would be 100 seconds, 1 minute 40. 1 minute 40. Well, that's a lot of time, isn't it? That's like 10% of the time. At the end of reading part A, wouldn't you love to have an extra 1 minute 40 just to check your answers or to find some other answers? So have a strategy, okay? When it comes to part B and part C, it's quite complicated how to get faster, how to get more accurate in this area. But again, have a strategy. And this strategy has got to combine how you manage multiple choice questions, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and also avoid getting stuck, okay? So have a process for MCQs, okay? Have a process for MCQs, and also don't get stuck, all right? Don't get stuck on difficult questions, okay? That is something that just steals people's time, and it's not a good thing to do. If you can't get the answer after 2 minutes, you're probably not going to get the answer after 5 minutes, okay? So time management doesn't live on its own, okay? yes, it's really important to have a strategy, but you really need to improve other aspects. And I'll talk about two of those today. One of them is going to be range of vocabulary. Okay, so we're going to talk about range of vocabulary next. If you've got a good range of vocabulary, okay, well, in that case, you can do a lot better. Okay, but let me just tell you some of the words that I came across recently. Okay, now in part C, this is where the big challenge is. You're going to have different types of vocabulary. You're going to have technical vocabulary. You're going to have academic style vocabulary. And the most difficult one to put your finger on, you're going to have idiomatic vocabulary. Let me give you some examples of what I mean. I went through and had a look at some Part C texts recently. And what I found was, I found some technical stuff. Let's have a look at this. Malnutrition. Comorbidity. This is just what I found in one paragraph. Immunocompromised. Now, most people, they're quite comfortable with this. You know, your doctors, your nurses, your pharmacists, your vets, your speech therapists, etc. So you know these kinds of words. But still, they're long, they're complicated, and it's possible that there could be a few gaps. Academic. Try these words. Dynamic, transient, obscure. Okay, do you know those words? You're going to find 3 or 4 of those types of words in every paragraph in reading Part C. And then let me give you some idiomatic, okay? Light at the end of the tunnel. Light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, well, that literally comes from a tunnel is maybe a way that goes through a mountain that a train would go through, and they're very dark. So being in the tunnel is dark and you feel hopeless and scared. But if you can see the light at the end, it makes you feel hopeful. So what that means idiomatically is that it's a long journey, but we're getting there. Okay, it's been difficult, but now we can see the result is in sight. Okay. What about noisy? Everybody knows the word noisy. If you live by a school playground, you can hear lots of noise. But that's not what it meant in the reading Part C that I saw. The reading Part C that I saw was talking about data. So there was a lot of data, and some of that data was useful, but most of the data was not useful. And that data was described as noisy. Okay, and what about take the lead? Okay, to take the lead. Well, if you were in a bicycle race, to take the lead means to go in front and be the leader, to be winning the race. But take the lead means to take responsibility for managing something, to say this is how it should be done. You're taking the lead. So you've got all of these types of vocabulary in there, and this is just 9 pieces of vocabulary that I found in one Part C text in 2 paragraphs. So every text is going to be like this. You have to improve your vocabulary. So what's the solution? Well, I've got a 4-letter word for you. Read. You have to read. You have to gain experience. Reading improves so many things. We'll talk about comprehension later. But reading is so important. So what can you read? You can read journals. You can read magazines. You can read books. You can read newspapers. But just read. And also do mock tests. You'll learn loads from that. Also, join a school that focuses on language as well as techniques. Okay, everybody goes looking onto the internet for techniques. How do I get the tricks for doing things? But with reading, really, there's no trick. There are some strategies, but if you don't have the vocabulary, the strategies will not work. Okay, so definitely try and get some help on how that on developing your language and developing your vocabulary. Okay, so next we've got multiple choice questions. Okay, now there are multiple choice questions throughout OET, not just in reading, and it's the same kind of approach for all of them. What can be different in listening and reading is that you do a lot more prep beforehand in, say, listening part C and listening part B, because you can't listen twice in listening. But in reading, you can read it again and you can read it multiple times. But we need to have a process for how we deal with multiple choice questions. Okay, so let's have a look at that as well. Okay, so here we are. Let's have a look at that now. Okay, so multiple choice questions. Here's an example of one from a reading part C. Now, we've got a section here that we call the question stem. Okay, this is the question stem. And we've got our answer options here. So it's good to have the terminology. We've got our answer options. We need a technique, we need a process for how we manage it, because they're difficult. They are definitely difficult. So definitely the first thing is have a strategy. Okay, and that strategy's got to have a technique. We would call it the 1, 2, 3 technique. Okay, I don't think that's a big secret. You review the question stem, you review the text, and then you review the options. So first of all, have a technique. Secondly, understand and practice something called differentiation. All right, so this is identifying key words that can show the difference between different options, and can help you once you get down to a few options left. It helps you choose the right answer. Use elimination. Okay, again, maybe this is something that you don't think about. Okay, but elimination's really useful. Again, go to a school that can teach these strategies, these processes, get lots of practice, and you'll get better at it. Okay, be practical. Okay, be practical. Some questions are too difficult. I know that sounds sad. I know you don't want to hear that. But some questions are too difficult to fully understand. Okay, if it's too difficult to fully understand, use elimination, choose an answer and move on. Don't waste your time with multiple choice questions that are too difficult. Nobody gets full marks. Most people don't need to get it more than 350. Most people need to get 30 points. Or 30 to 31 points. So just accept sometimes you don't understand why something's the answer. Use your skills and your strategy to get the best option you can get, and then move on. Okay? Let's be practical. Okay? We've only got a certain amount of time. Use that time wisely. As I said earlier, if you can't get the answer after 2 minutes, why will you get it after 5? And 5 minutes have gone now. The next question could be an easier one. Okay. What's next? Recognizing paraphrasing. If I could give anybody, any of my students, if I could give them a skill like that, I would give them this skill. Paraphrasing is when you say a phrase or a word with different words to the ones you used before. Okay. So it's a difficult thing to do. It requires you to have good vocabulary and good grammar and good knowledge, sort of idiomatically, of what different phrases mean and how they can affect people differently. Okay, so let's look at an example. All right, let's have a look at this example here. All right, so look at the question. The question says, which complication of shingles may cause deafness? Okay, now this is a short answer question from reading part A. Which complication of shingles may cause deafness? Now, what we would do in our technique is we would say, okay, what word can take me to the right text? Complication. Now, because I've done my step 1 of prepping the texts, I know that text C is all about complications. Now, if I look at this document, I'm looking for complications. Well, I can see there are lots of complications here. Now, think to yourself, what are you looking for next? Well, I'm scanning the text, I'm looking for this. May cause deafness. All right, it may cause deafness. Now, I need to keep my mind open. When I scan, I could say, okay, can anyone see the word paraphrasing? There it is. Or I could say, can anyone see a word that means saying the same thing in a different way? Well, that would be paraphrasing as well. So I can give a clue. It would be something that sounds the same, or it's something that means something similar, or I can look for the exact word. So I'm going to look in this text for the word deafness, but I'm also going to keep my mind open for something else, like which part of the body does deafness affect? Are there any other words that are associated with deafness? So I scan, and I'm looking down, scanning, 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 and then what do I see? I see this word oticus. Now I know that that relates to hearing and ears, and then I see this hearing. Okay, so I know I'm in the right place. I'm going to go back, I'm going to read it. This occurs when the virus infects the facial nerve. It is characterized by lesions in the ear, facial paralysis, and associated hearing and vestibular symptoms. Okay, so deafness, I'm having a bit of a problem. That's what I'm thinking matches here. It is characterized by. Okay, so that's not the same as it will cause, but if I say it is characterized by, then I'm thinking the answer for my question must be this. This is characterized by this, so it must cause these problems. That's not an easy thing to do, and I wish that everyone was able to do it quickly, but you need to improve your vocabulary and your grammar in order to do that. That's the solution for it. So many of my solutions involve improving your English. Okay, let's look at the last one. Comprehension. Okay, this is comprehension in part C. Okay, comprehension in part C. Let's go and have a look at it. Okay, so what do I mean when I'm talking about comprehension? Well, what I'm talking about is, I'm talking about basically understanding what a text means. And we've got vocabulary. That's obviously really, really important. Okay, vocabulary is very, very important. But it's also not just that. It's not just grammar, but it's words that I would call text tools. All right? These are phrases. They can be linking devices. They can be referencing. It can be a word like still. It can be a word like following. These are words which they connect. They act as the glue in between words in a sentence and sentences in a paragraph that gives you a sense of understanding. Okay? So, if we look at this text, I found all of these, what I would call text tools. We've got a sequencing thing here. Following amputation, that means after amputation. So amputation is done first. The patient commonly experiences the amputated limb as still intact. This, well, that's referring to what happened in the previous sentence. You can see that in part C, what they're testing you on is your ability to combine ideas that you have read and understand them together, and then make judgments in the multiple choice questions about which options match the text. Okay, so you're seeing paraphrasing, multiple choice, vocabulary, comprehension, all coming together. It's not one aspect. These 5 biggest challenges, they all tie in together. So we've got this here, and we've got this here. Each time you see this, they are referring to some idea that was in the previous sentence. All right. So this so-called phantom limb can sometimes be painful, something which can have far-reaching implications for the patient's life. For instance, well, this is going to be an example of a far-reaching implication. Now, you might not think about language like this. You might not think of the paragraph like that. But by recognizing and understanding how these text tools work, your comprehension will improve. Okay, it will improve. So, what's the solution? Okay, what's the solution? Well, the solution for me, if we go back, okay, the solution for me in terms of the 5 biggest challenges: improve your language, improve your vocabulary and your grammar, read more and learn some really good strategies, get lots of practice of the strategies. That's what we need to do. That's how we overcome reading. And I know that by speaking to our students that reading is the biggest problem for most of our students. So improve your vocabulary, improve your grammar, gain experience, have good strategies. Okay, really, really important to do all of those things. Okay, and if you do all of those things, your time management will improve. The number of questions that you get right will improve. Okay, and this affects all aspects of reading. Plus, if you get good at those things, you'll become good at other things as well. All right, so that's the end of the class. We're going to have some other classes with some OET reading information as well. So we'll see you soon, and take care. Good luck.